The millionaire announced, "I'm successful because of this woman." His wife smiled, proud, until he pointed at someone else. She stayed calm, but after a few minutes, a message appeared on his phone, and it completely shattered his pride. "Hi, my beautiful, loyal, and great family. Welcome back to your own family channel, Mr. Peter's Stories. Hi, my beautiful family. May the Almighty bless every woman with unshakable strength, a heart so pure it heals all around her, and a dignity that shines brighter than the morning sun. You are the pillars of love, the gentle hands holding families together, the silent warriors who carry pain yet spread warmth everywhere. I pray your homes overflow with peace, your days rise with hope, and your paths are guided by endless blessings. May every worry vanish, every closed door open for you, and every tear turn into joy. You deserve heavens of love, comfort, and respect for all that you give without asking anything in return. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." The chandeliers in the grand ballroom cast diamonds of light across 500 faces, all turned toward the stage where Paul Fisher stood in his custom Brioni suit, his smile as polished as the marble floors beneath expensive shoes. Sonia Cooper stood beside him in the emerald gown she had spent weeks designing, the silk hugging her curves in a way that made her feel like royalty. Tonight was supposed to be their night, their triumph, the celebration of everything they had built together. Paul's voice boomed through the microphone, smooth and confident, each word carefully measured for maximum impact. 20 years ago, I had nothing but a dream and a laptop. No funding, no connections, no roadmap, just a vision of what technology could become. Sonia felt her chest swell with pride. She remembered those early days, the two of them working in their tiny apartment, surviving on ramen and ambition. She remembered writing code until her fingers cramped, solving problems that made other developers quit. She remembered believing in him, in them, in the future they were building together. Building Fisher Industries from the ground up taught me that success is never a solo journey, Paul continued, his hand reaching out. Sonia's heart hammered. This was it. The moment he would finally acknowledge her publicly, the moment the world would know that she was not just the wife standing beside the genius, but the genius herself. "I owe my entire empire to this woman," Paul declared. Sonia's breath caught. Cameras flashed. Her smile felt like it would split her face. Finally, after all these years of being invisible, of watching him take credit for her work, of being introduced as Paul Fisher's wife, instead of Sonia Cooper, the brilliant software architect who made everything possible. Then his hand moved past her. His finger pointed across the room, past 3 tables of board members and investors, landing squarely on Judy Carter. The blonde woman in the red dress stood up, her smile demure, but her eyes glittering with something that made Sonia's stomach drop. The room erupted in polite applause. Sonia's smile stayed frozen on her face, a grotesque mask that cameras captured from every angle. Her body felt like stone, rooted to that stage while her world tilted sideways. Judy Carter, my executive consultant, came into my life when Fisher Industries was on the brink of collapse, Paul continued, his voice filled with warmth that used to be reserved for Sonia. Her vision, her brilliance, her strategic mind saved this company. Without her insights, we would not be standing here tonight. Judy, please, come up here. Judy glided through the crowd like she owned the room. Maybe she did. Sonia watched her climb the stage steps, watched Paul extend his hand to help her up, watched them stand together, while photographers captured what would become tomorrow's headline, Fisher Industries' secret weapon. Sonia wanted to scream, wanted to rip the microphone from Paul's hands and tell everyone the truth, but her body would not obey. She stood there, that horrible smile still plastered across her face, dying inside, while the world applauded her husband praising another woman. Paul's phone buzzed on the podium, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He glanced down, probably planning to ignore it, but whatever he saw made his face drain of all color. His hand, still holding the microphone, started to tremble. Sonia watched confusion ripple across his features. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The smooth speech he had been delivering stuttered to a halt. He tried to recover, tried to continue, but his eyes kept darting back to that phone screen. From where Sonia stood, slightly behind and to the left of the podium, she could see the screen, could see the photo displayed there. Paul's signature, bold and unmistakable, scrawled across legal documents. The header read clearly, even from her angle, "Transfer of Shares Agreement." Below the photo, a message in stark white text, "Your wife deserves to know who really owns Fisher Industries now." Sonia's brain processed the information in fragments. Share transfer. Judy's name on the documents. The date stamp showing this happened weeks ago, while Paul still crawled into their bed every night, while he still kissed her goodbye every morning, while he still called her baby and told her he loved her. The applause had died down. 500 people waited for Paul to continue. He cleared his throat, attempted another sentence, but the words came out mangled. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. His hand gripped the podium so hard, his knuckles turned white. Judy, standing beside him, leaned in to whisper something. Her hand touched his arm in a gesture far too familiar, far too intimate. Sonia saw it all with crystalline clarity now. The late nights, Paul claimed, were board meetings. The weekend conferences that spouses were not invited to. The new cologne he started wearing. The way he stopped asking about her day, stopped caring about her work, stopped seeing her as anything but furniture in his perfectly curated life. "I apologize," Paul finally managed, his voice cracking slightly. "I seem to be getting an urgent message. If you will excuse me for just a moment." He stepped back from the podium, phone clutched in his hand, his eyes finally meeting Sonia's. What she saw there was not love or concern. It was fear, raw, undiluted terror of being caught. The ballroom hummed with confused conversation. Judy stood awkwardly at the podium, her smile faltering. The event coordinator rushed forward to salvage the situation, announcing that dinner would be served while Mr. Fisher attended to urgent business. Sonia walked off that stage with her head high, her smile never wavering, every step measured and graceful. Inside, she was already planning, already calculating, already preparing to burn down everything Paul Fisher thought he owned. Because that phone message did not come from some random whistleblower or concerned employee. It came from her. Chapter 2. The Architect of Nothing. The silence in their Calabasas mansion felt like a living thing, pressing against Sonia's skin as she sat in the library she had designed herself. Paul had tried talking to her in the limousine. She had not responded. He had tried again as they walked through the front door. She had simply walked to the library and closed the door, leaving him standing in their grand foyer like a stranger. That was 3 hours ago. 3 hours of silence while Sonia sat with the folder she had prepared, the evidence she had collected, the truth she was finally ready to unleash. The library door opened. Paul walked in, his tie loosened, his confident facade crumbling around the edges. "Sonia, baby, we need to talk about what happened tonight." She looked up from her seat by the window. "Do we?" "That message, I do not know who sent it, but it is not what it looks like." His voice carried that placating tone he used with difficult clients. "Someone is trying to sabotage me, to destroy what we have built together." What we have built together. Sonia repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitterness. "That is an interesting phrase coming from you." "Sonia, please." Paul moved closer, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. "Sit down, Paul." Something in her voice made him obey. He sank into the leather chair across from her, confusion and concern warring across his features. Probably concern for himself, Sonia thought. Definitely not for her. She picked up the folder from the side table. "I sent you that message." Paul's eyes widened. What? Why would you do that? Because I wanted you to feel what I felt tonight. Standing on that stage, believing my husband was finally going to acknowledge me, only to watch him praise another woman. I wanted you to experience that moment of complete humiliation in front of 500 people. Sonia opened the folder, her hands steady despite the rage burning through her veins. But that was just the appetizer, Paul. Now we get to the main course. She pulled out the first document. Do you remember our beginning? You had this brilliant idea for software that could revolutionize data processing. You had the vision, the charisma, the business sense. There was just one problem. You could not code worth a damn. Sonia, I know you helped with the early development, but helped? Her laugh was sharp enough to cut. I wrote every single line of code that launched Fisher Industries. Every algorithm, every architecture, every innovation that made your software revolutionary. All of it came from my brain, my hands, my sleepless nights. Paul shifted in his chair. You are being dramatic. We worked on it together. Did we? Sonia pulled out a stack of notebooks, her handwriting filling every page. These are my original development notes. The code that became Fisher Core, your flagship product. Written entirely by me. The pattern recognition system that won you Technology Innovator of the Year. Mine. The data compression algorithm that everyone said was impossible. I solved it while you were golfing with investors. She watched the color drain from his face as recognition set in. I kept meticulous records, Paul. Every single innovation, every breakthrough, every solution that built your empire. I documented it all. Why are you doing this? His voice came out small, nothing like the booming confidence from the stage. Because you have been stealing from me for our entire marriage. Sonia pulled out more papers. Here is the copyright registration for the original Fisher Core code. Notice anything interesting about the name on the filing? Paul leaned forward, his eyes scanning the document. His face went white. This says Sonia Cooper. That is right. The code that runs your entire company is copyrighted in my name. When we started Fisher Industries, you convinced me to license it to you for $1. You said it was just a formality, that we were building this together, that we were partners. You promised me credit, recognition, partnership. You got all of that. You are my wife, for God's sake. What is mine is yours. Really? Sonia's voice dropped to something dangerous. Then explain these bank statements. She threw a stack of papers onto the coffee table between them. Paul's eyes darted across the numbers, and she watched him understand exactly what he was looking at. Monthly transfers to an account in Judy Carter's name. $50,000 every single month. That penthouse she lives in, you bought it. The consulting firm she runs, you funded it. The car she drives, the clothes she wears, the lifestyle she flaunts on social media, all paid for by money you earned from my work. Sonia, I can explain. Explain what? That you have been funneling our money to your mistress? That you gave her a consulting position doing absolutely nothing while I did all the real work without credit? That you transferred 30% of company shares to her? Sonia leaned forward. Yes, Paul, I know about the share transfer, the one you signed 2 weeks ago, the one that gives Judy Carter ownership of nearly a third of Fisher Industries. Paul's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. How did I know? Because I have been watching you for a long time. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment you thought I was too stupid or too in love to notice, I noticed everything. If you knew, why did you stay? The question came out desperate. Because I was building my case. Sonia stood up, walking to the window overlooking their pool, their perfectly manicured lawn, their symbol of success built on her genius and his theft. I needed to document everything. I needed to be absolutely certain before I destroyed you. Destroyed me? Sonia, I am your husband. We can work through this. She turned to face him, her expression carved from ice. You stopped being my husband the moment you erased my name from every patent, every product, every achievement. You stopped being my husband when you let the world believe you were the genius while I was just the supportive wife. You stopped being my husband when you put your hands on Judy Carter and decided she was worth more than the woman who built your entire empire. Paul stood up, anger finally replacing fear. You think you can just take everything from me? I have lawyers, Sonia. The best lawyers money can buy. You will get nothing in a divorce. Nothing? Sonia smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who held all the cards. Paul, I do not want a divorce. Confusion flickered across his face. You do not? No. Because a divorce implies we were ever really partners, that you ever saw me as an equal. But you did not, did you? I was just the convenient genius you could exploit, the brilliant black woman whose society would never fund on her own, who needed your white face and your confidence to get in the door. That is not fair. Fair? Sonia's voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fair? I poured my soul into building your reputation. I wrote code that changed entire industries while you took business meetings and played golf. I made you look like a visionary while staying invisible. And you repaid me by making me stand on a stage and watch you praise your mistress as the woman who saved your company. Paul's phone rang, cutting through the tension. He glanced at the screen and his face somehow went even whiter. Answer it, Sonia commanded. Sonia, Answer the damn phone, Paul. His hands trembled as he accepted the call. Hello? Yes, this is Paul Fisher. He listened, and Sonia watched the last of his composure crumble. What do you mean the licensing agreement expired? That is impossible. There must be some mistake. Sonia's smile widened. There is no mistake. Paul covered the phone. What did you do? That $1 license I gave you, the one you thought gave you permanent rights to my code? Read the fine print. It had an expiration clause, a very specific expiration clause that activated under certain conditions. What conditions? Infidelity, transfer of shares without my consent, public humiliation. Take your pick, Paul. You triggered every single one. Sonia walked toward the library door. That was your attorney on the phone, I assume, calling to tell you that, as of tonight, you no longer have legal rights to use any of the code that runs Fisher Industries. Paul dropped the phone. You cannot do this. The company will collapse. That sounds like a you problem. Sonia picked up her pre-packed suitcase from behind the door. She had placed it there before they left for the gala, knowing exactly how tonight would end. Sonia, wait! Paul blocked her path, desperation making him grab her arm. You cannot just leave. We can fix this. I will give you credit, put your name on everything, make you co-CEO, whatever you want. She looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Take your hand off me. Please just listen. I said take your hand off me. Something in her voice made him release her immediately. Sonia adjusted her grip on her suitcase. You want to know what I want, Paul? I want you to lose everything. I want you to feel what it is like to be invisible, powerless, watching someone else take credit for your brilliance. I want you to understand that you were never the builder. You were just a thief who got caught. I will ruin you, Paul threatened, his voice shaking with rage and fear. I will make sure you never work in tech again. I will destroy your reputation. I will... Sonia turned back at the doorway, and the smile on her face made him stop mid-sentence. That smile, cold and certain and terrifying in its complete confidence. You spent our entire marriage taking credit for my genius, Paul. Now the whole world gets to watch me take credit for your destruction. Every line of code, every algorithm, every innovation you claimed as yours. I am shutting it all down. And when Fisher Industries is nothing but a memory, everyone will know the truth. You were never the builder. You were just the thief who got caught. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like thunder in the silent mansion. Paul stood alone in the library, his phone buzzing with incoming calls he did not have the courage to answer, the weight of her words crushing him into the expensive carpet beneath his feet. Chapter 3. The Real Owner. The morning light filtered through the hotel suite windows where Sonia had spent her first night of freedom. She had not slept. Instead, she sat at the desk with her laptop, watching Fisher Industries' infrastructure begin its slow, inevitable collapse. Every system, every platform, every application she had built, all of it coded with her personal authorization protocols buried so deep that Paul's IT team would take months to find them, let alone bypass them. Her phone showed 37 missed calls from Paul. She deleted the notifications without listening to a single voicemail. Her burner phone, the one only her attorney had the number for, buzzed with an incoming call. "Good morning, Melissa." "Sonia, I just got off the phone with Fisher Industries' legal team. They are in full panic mode." Melissa Torres had been Sonia's secret weapon, a ruthless attorney who specialized in intellectual property theft. They had been preparing this case for over 2 years, building an airtight fortress of evidence. "They are threatening to file injunctions to force you to restore access to the systems." "Let them try." Sonia pulled up another window on her laptop, showing Fisher Industries' stock price in freefall. "They cannot force me to license them something I own." That was always the beauty of Paul never actually reading the documents he signed. "Speaking of documents," Melissa's voice carried a note of satisfaction, "I filed the paperwork this morning. The Copyright Office has been notified that Paul Fisher has been using your intellectual property without valid authorization. Every product Fisher Industries currently has on the market is now in legal limbo." "What about the share transfer to Judy Carter?" "That is where things get interesting." Papers rustled on Melissa's end. "Paul transferred 30% of Fisher Industries to Judy, right? Except he never actually owned those shares. You did." Sonia had been waiting for this confirmation. "Explain it to me like I did not already know, just so I can enjoy hearing it again." Melissa laughed. "When you and Paul founded Fisher Industries, you were both listed as co-founders in the original Articles of Incorporation, but the actual share distribution was based on intellectual property contribution. Since you owned the copyright to the core technology, the founding documents gave you 75% ownership. Paul got 25% for his business development role. And Paul never read the founding documents carefully enough to understand that." "Exactly. He saw his name as co-founder and CEO, and assumed that meant equal ownership. For years, you let him operate as if he controlled the company. You signed off on decisions, stayed in the background, played the supportive wife, but legally, you always held majority control." Sonia thought about all those board meetings where Paul made decisions without consulting her, all those times he signed contracts and made deals as if he owned everything. So when he transferred shares to Judy, he attempted to transfer something he did not have the authority to transfer. That share transfer is completely void. Not just voidable, but void from the beginning. It never had any legal effect. Melissa paused. "Judy Carter thinks she owns part of Fisher Industries. She does not own anything. And Paul? Paul is about to discover that his wife is not just the genius behind his company's technology. She is also the woman who actually owns his company." Sonia closed her eyes, letting the satisfaction wash over her. Every careful plan, every documented conversation, every seemingly naive signature on documents she had read far more carefully than Paul ever did. It all led to this moment. "There is more," Melissa continued. "I did some digging into Judy Carter's background. Want to know what I found?" "Tell me." "She is not a business consultant. She has no relevant degree, no certifications, no track record of successful consulting projects. Before Paul hired her, she was working as a mid-level marketing coordinator at a firm that went bankrupt. Her entire resume is fluff and fabrication." Paul fell for a con artist, or he knew exactly what she was and did not care because he was thinking with something other than his brain. Melissa's voice hardened. Either way, he paid her millions of dollars in consulting fees for work she never did, gave her a phantom ownership stake in a company he did not actually control, and humiliated his wife, who was the actual genius behind everything he built. Sonia's laptop pinged with a news alert. "Fisher Industries stock plummets after system failures," read the headline. The article detailed how the company's entire software infrastructure had mysteriously gone offline, leaving clients unable to access critical systems. "It is starting," Sonia murmured. "What is?" "The collapse. By this afternoon, Fisher Industries will have lost half its market value. By tomorrow, clients will be terminating contracts. By next week, the board will be calling for Paul's resignation. And you? I will be watching him burn. Sonia pulled up another file, this one containing the business plan she had been developing in secret. But I am not just burning his world down, Melissa. I am building my own. I was hoping you would say that. I have some people you should meet. What kind of people? The kind who have been waiting for someone with your talent to break free from Paul Fisher's shadow. Investors who understand exactly what you are capable of. People who want to fund your next venture, whatever that might be. Sonia stood up, walking to the window. Los Angeles stretched out before her, full of possibility. Set up meetings. I want to move fast. How fast? I want a new company registered by the end of the week. I want office space secured. I want to start poaching Paul's best engineers, the ones who always knew I was the real talent. Sonia's mind was already racing ahead, calculating, planning. Paul built his reputation on my genius. Now I am going to build an empire that makes Fisher Industries look like a joke. I love it when you get vindictive. This is not vindictive, Melissa. This is justice. After they hung up, Sonia spent the rest of the morning reviewing offers from venture capitalists who had somehow already heard about Fisher Industries' problems. Word traveled fast in Silicon Valley, especially when a titan was falling, her inbox filled with carefully worded emails expressing interest in her future projects, with subtle implications that everyone had always known Paul Fisher was not the real genius behind his company's success. By noon, Fisher Industries' stock had dropped 62%. The board had issued a statement claiming technical difficulties would be resolved shortly. The statement was a lie, and everyone knew it. Paul called again. This time, Sonia answered. Sonia, thank God. You have to fix this. The systems are completely down. Clients are threatening to sue. The board is realizing they bet everything on a fraud. Sonia's voice was calm, almost pleasant. How does it feel, Paul, watching everything you stole crumble in your hands? I never stole anything. We built this together. We did not build anything together. I built it. You took credit. There is a significant difference. Fine. You are right, okay? You were the genius, the talent, the real innovator. I should have given you credit. I should have made you co-CEO. I should have put your name on everything. His voice cracked with desperation. But we can still fix this. Come back, restore the systems, and I will give you whatever you want. 50-50 partnership, your name first on everything, complete creative control. You think I want anything from you? You think after you humiliated me in front of 500 people, after you gave my work to your mistress, after you erased me for years, that I would come crawling back for scraps? What do you want then? Money? I will give you half of everything, more than half. Just please, Sonia, you are killing me here. Good. Sonia let the word hang in the air. You spent years killing me slowly, piece by piece, every time you took credit for my work, every time you introduced me as just your wife, every time you made me invisible while you basked in glory that belonged to me. Now you get to feel what dying slowly tastes like. The company will go bankrupt. Everything will be gone. Your company will go bankrupt. Fisher Industries was always a house built on stolen foundation. Now that foundation is gone, and your house is collapsing. Sonia pulled up another screen on her laptop. Did you know I have been headhunting your best engineers, the ones who always knew I was the real talent? They have been waiting for me to make my move. By the end of the day, half your development team will have resignation letters on your desk. You cannot do that. I can, and I am. Turns out when you treat brilliant people like garbage while taking credit for their work, they jump at the chance to work with someone who will actually appreciate them. Paul's breathing became ragged. What about us? What about our marriage? What marriage, Paul? The one where you cheated on me? The one where you stole my life's work? The one where you gave another woman credit for saving a company I built? Sonia's laugh was bitter. That marriage died a long time ago. I just had not signed the death certificate yet. I love you. No, you do not. You loved what I could do for you. You loved having a genius you could exploit while playing the visionary. You loved the success my brain brought you." Sonia's voice turned to ice. "But you never loved me, Sonia Cooper, the woman. You loved Sonia Fisher, the convenient wife who made you look brilliant. That is not true. Save it for someone who cares. I have meetings to attend." She started to hang up, then paused. "Oh, and Paul, you should probably talk to your attorney about that share transfer to Judai. Turns out you gave her something you never actually owned. She is going to be so disappointed when she finds out." Sonia ended the call and blocked his number. Her phone rang immediately from a different number. Melissa. "Tell me you have good news," Sonia said. "Better than good. David Reeves wants to meet with you." Sonia's breath caught. David Reeves was a legend in Silicon Valley, a venture capitalist who had built $3 billion companies from scratch. His investment firm, Reeves Capital, was known for finding hidden genius and turning it into empire. "David Reeves knows who I am?" "Sonia, everyone who matters knows who you are. They have known for years that Paul Fisher was a fraud riding on his wife's genius. They just could not do anything about it while you stayed in his shadow." Melissa's voice carried a smile. "Now that you have stepped into the light, they are all lining up for a piece of what you build next. When does he want to meet?" "Tonight, 8 o'clock, his office downtown." "Set it up." Sonia looked at her reflection in the window, seeing herself clearly for the first time in years. Not as Paul Fisher's wife, not as the invisible genius behind someone else's empire, but as Sonia Cooper, the woman who was about to change everything. "One more thing," Melissa added. "The board of directors at Fisher Industries just called an emergency meeting. They are voting on Paul's future as CEO. How long do you think he has? Based on the stock price and the client exodus, I would give him until tomorrow morning before they throw him out." Sonia smiled. "Good. I want him to feel every second of his fall." She spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for her meeting with David Reeves, pulling together her vision for what came next. Not revenge disguised as business, not some petty attempt to compete with Paul, but something revolutionary. Something that would make Fisher Industries look like a relic of a bygone era. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold, Sonia understood something profound. She had spent years building Paul's empire, making him rich and famous while she stayed invisible. That was the painful part. The beautiful part? Now she knew exactly how to build an empire that was entirely her own, and this time the only name on the door would be hers. Chapter 4. The Ghost in the Machine. The emergency board meeting at Fisher Industries started at 8 in the morning, which meant Paul had spent the entire night in his office, desperately trying to salvage something from the disaster his life had become. The conference room felt like a tomb, the air heavy with accusation and barely concealed panic. 15 board members sat around the mahogany table, their faces ranging from furious to terrified. Paul sat at the head of the table where he had presided over so many victories, but today he looked small, diminished, like a king who just discovered his throne was made of cardboard. "Walk us through exactly what happened," demanded Gregory Chen, the chairman of the board, his voice carrying the weight of billions in lost market value. "Our entire infrastructure goes offline overnight, and nobody can explain why." Paul cleared his throat, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "We are experiencing a sophisticated cyber attack. My team is working around the clock to restore functionality." "A cyber attack?" Another board member, Diane Foster, leaned forward with ice in her eyes. "Or did your wife shut us down because you gave company shares to your mistress?" The room went silent. Paul felt sweat trickle down his back, despite the aggressive air conditioning. "That is a personal matter that has nothing to do with the company." Gregory slammed his hand on the table. "The Fisher Core platform that runs every single one of our products belongs to your wife, Paul. Your wife, who you publicly humiliated. Your wife, who apparently owns 75% of this company while you own 25%. Your wife, who according to our attorneys, wrote every significant piece of code that made Fisher Industries successful. That is an exaggeration, Paul tried weakly. Is it? Diane pulled out a thick folder. Our legal team spent last night reviewing every document from the company's founding, the incorporation papers, the intellectual property assignments, the licensing agreements. Want to know what we found? Paul stayed silent. Sonia Cooper is listed as the primary contributor of intellectual property in the founding documents. She copyrighted the core technology in her own name and licensed it to Fisher Industries under specific terms, terms that you apparently violated by transferring shares you never actually controlled to a woman who has no legitimate business credentials. Judy is a valued consultant. Judy Carter is a fraud. Gregory pushed another file across the table. Our investigators looked into her background. She has no relevant education, no successful consulting projects, no legitimate business experience. What she does have is a very expensive penthouse, a luxury car, and a bank account that you have been filling with our money. Paul felt the walls closing in. My personal relationship with Judy has nothing to do with her professional contributions. Professional contributions? Diane's laugh was harsh. Show me one single deliverable she produced, one report, one analysis, one strategic recommendation that actually impacted our business. Just one. Paul opened his mouth, then closed it. He had nothing. Judy's job had always been nebulous, her contributions vague. She attended meetings, looked beautiful, made him feel important. But concrete work? Measurable results? He could not name a single thing. What you can show us, Gregory continued, is millions of dollars in payments to her consulting firm. Payments that now look suspiciously like money laundering when we consider she was also your mistress. You used company funds to finance your affair while your wife was actually doing the work that kept this company running. This is absurd. I built Fisher Industries from nothing. Did you? Diane stood up, circling the table slowly like a predator cornering prey. Let me tell you what really happened. 20 years ago, Sonia Cooper had revolutionary ideas about data processing and software architecture, but as a black woman in tech, she could not get funded. So she partnered with you, her charming white husband who could pitch to investors, who fit the image of what a tech genius was supposed to look like. You were the face, Paul. She was the brain. And somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that being the face meant you were the genius. That is not how it happened. Then tell us how it happened, Gregory challenged. Explain to this board how you developed Fisher Core. Walk us through the algorithm. Explain the architecture. Show us your original code. Paul's mind went blank. He knew the general concepts, could talk about what the software did. But the actual technical details? The code itself? He had never truly understood it. That was always Sonia's domain. His silence confirmed everything. The stock price has dropped 78%, Gregory stated flatly. We have lost 3 major clients overnight. 4 more are threatening to terminate contracts if we cannot restore functionality by the end of the week. Our market capitalization has evaporated. We can fix this, Paul insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. I will talk to Sonia, convince her to come back, negotiate a settlement. You think she will come back? Diane returned to her seat. Why would she? You humiliated her publicly, stole credit for her work, cheated on her with a con artist, and attempted to give away shares of the company she actually owns. Give me one good reason why Sonia Cooper would save you. Because she loves me. The statement hung in the air like a bad joke. Several board members actually laughed. Paul, Gregory said with something almost like pity. We spoke with Sonia's attorney this morning. She does not want the company back. She does not want to fix the systems. She wants to watch Fisher Industries collapse. And based on what you did to her, I completely understand why. What are you saying? We are saying that your tenure as CEO of Fisher Industries is over. Gregory pulled out a prepared statement. The board has voted unanimously, I might add, to remove you from your position effective immediately. We are also pursuing legal action to recoup the funds you inappropriately transferred to Judy Carter. You will be hearing from our attorneys. Paul felt his world shatter. "You cannot do this. I founded this company." "No, Paul. Sonia Cooper founded this company. You just convinced everyone, including yourself, that her genius was yours." Diane stood up, gathering her files. "Security will escort you from the building. You have 1 hour to collect your personal items." The board members filed out, leaving Paul alone in the conference room that had been his kingdom. 20 years of work, of building his reputation, of being celebrated as a visionary, all of it gone in one night because he had been stupid enough to think he could betray the only person who made any of it possible. His phone buzzed with a text message. "Judy. Did you fix this? I need to know what is happening with my shares." Paul stared at the message, then at his reflection in the dark window. He typed back, "There are no shares. We both got played." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Judy did not respond. Within minutes, she blocked his number. Paul walked through the Fisher Industries headquarters one last time, past the photos on the walls celebrating his achievements, past the employees who would not meet his eyes, past the reception desk where his name was being removed from the directory even as he watched. Security guards flanked him, professional but cold, treating him like a criminal being perp-walked from the building. Outside, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Fisher, is it true your wife owned the company? Did you steal your wife's work? How do you respond to allegations of fraud?" Paul pushed through them without answering, climbing into his car with camera flashes exploding around him. He drove without destination, just driving, trying to process the magnitude of his fall. His phone rang, unknown number. He answered anyway, desperate for anything. "Paul Fisher?" A male voice, unfamiliar. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to offer you an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" "The kind where you tell your side of the story. How your wife is destroying the company you built. How she is using legal technicalities to steal everything from you. We can make you look sympathetic, victimized. We can turn public opinion back in your favor." Paul felt a flicker of hope. "Who do you work for?" "Let us just say we represent certain media interests who believe there are 2 sides to every story. Meet me tomorrow and we can discuss how to rehabilitate your image." After the call ended, Paul felt something like optimism returning. Maybe he could still salvage this. Maybe he could still paint himself as the victim. But then another message came through. A news alert from a major tech publication. Sonia Cooper, the genius behind Fisher Industries, emerges from her husband's shadow. The article detailed everything: her copyright filings, her original notebooks, her actual role in building the company, interviews with former engineers who confirmed she was the real talent, documentation showing how Paul systematically erased her name from patents and press releases, bank records proving he funneled millions to Judy Carter. The article painted Paul not as a visionary, but as a thief who stole his wife's genius and called it his own. His phone rang again. This time it was his attorney. "Paul, we need to talk about your legal situation. The board is preparing a lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty. Sonia's team is pursuing criminal charges for intellectual property theft, and the SEC is launching an investigation into your financial dealings with Judy Carter. Can we win?" A long pause. "No, Paul. We cannot win. Your best option is to settle, apologize publicly, and hope Sonia shows mercy." "Mercy? After what she has done to me? After what you did to her, you mean?" His attorney's voice carried disgust. "I have seen a lot of ugly divorces, Paul, but what you did, stealing your wife's genius for 20 years while cheating on her with a con artist, you do not deserve mercy. You deserve exactly what you are getting." The call ended. Paul sat in his car in an empty parking lot, watching the sun set on his first day as a nobody. Yesterday he was a celebrated tech visionary. Today he was a cautionary tale about what happens when you confuse luck with genius, when you mistake exploitation for innovation, when you destroy the one person who made everything possible. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from a number he did not recognize. "How does it feel to be invisible, Paul? To watch everything you claimed crumble, to be powerless while the world discovers the truth. This is just the beginning. Watch what I build next. The message did not include a name. It did not need to. Paul knew exactly who sent it. And somewhere in Los Angeles, in an office high above the city, Sonia Cooper smiled as she prepared for a meeting that would change everything. Chapter 5. The Real Genius. David Reeves's office occupied the entire top floor of a building in downtown Los Angeles, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views that made the city look like a glittering circuit board. Sonia arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a charcoal suit she had designed herself, her natural hair styled in elegant locks that framed her face like a crown. She looked every inch the CEO she was about to become. The receptionist, a young man with kind eyes, smiled when she gave her name. "Ms. Cooper, Mr. Reeves has been looking forward to meeting you. He says you can go straight in." The office was minimalist and expensive, all clean lines and carefully chosen art. David Reeves stood by the windows, a tall man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing. When he turned to greet her, Sonia felt something unexpected, recognition. Not in a personal sense, but something deeper. He looked at her, the way she looked at complex code, seeing patterns and possibilities others missed. Sonia Cooper. He extended his hand, his grip firm but not aggressive. "I have been wanting to meet you for a very long time." "Most people think they have been meeting me through my husband." She kept her voice neutral, testing his response. "Most people are idiots." David gestured to the sitting area, 2 leather chairs arranged for conversation rather than confrontation. "I have known Paul Fisher was a fraud since the day I first analyzed Fisher Core's source code." Sonia sat down, intrigued. "You reviewed the code?" "Before making any major investment, I always review the actual technology, not the pitch, not the business plan, but the code itself." David poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal carafe. Fisher Core was extraordinary. The architecture was elegant, the algorithms were revolutionary, the entire approach was years ahead of anyone else in the field. Then I watched Paul Fisher try to explain it at a conference. And he could not. Oh, he could talk about what the software did, how it revolutionized data processing, the market opportunity, but when someone asked him a technical question about the compression algorithm, he fumbled, gave vague answers, changed the subject. David leaned forward. "That is when I started digging, looking at patent filings, copyright registrations, original documentation. Your name was everywhere in the actual creation, but nowhere in the public recognition. Why did you not say anything?" "To who? You were Paul's wife. Every time I saw you at industry events, you played the role perfectly. The supportive spouse, content to stand beside the genius. I assumed you were complicit, that you had made a calculated decision to let him be the public face while you stayed behind the scenes. You assumed I was okay with being invisible. I was wrong." David's voice carried genuine regret. "I should have looked deeper. Should have questioned why someone with your talent would accept erasure, but I made the same mistake everyone else made. I saw the surface and stopped looking." Sonia studied him carefully. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know I understand exactly who you are and what you are capable of. This is not some opportunistic pitch because you just became available. I have been tracking your work for years, hoping someday you would step out of Paul Fisher's shadow." David pulled out a folder thick with documentation. "These are printouts of anonymous posts from coding forums, technical solutions to problems that stumped entire development teams, elegant algorithms published under pseudonyms, breakthrough approaches to machine learning architecture that mysteriously appeared and changed how people thought about AI." He slid the folder across to Sonia. She opened it, her breath catching as she recognized her own work. Posts she had made late at night when Paul was asleep, solving problems just for the joy of solving them, helping other developers without needing credit. "That was you, was it not?" David asked softly. "When Paul was taking credit for your professional work, You were still creating, still contributing, still being generous with your genius. You just did it anonymously because you are driven by the love of the work itself, not the recognition. Sonia felt something break open inside her chest. Someone saw her, really saw her. Not as Paul Fisher's wife, not as the invisible woman behind the famous man, but as herself, as Sonia Cooper, the genius who changed technology because she could not help but create. How long have you known it was me? About 2 years. I have people who track emerging talent in the tech community. When I started seeing these anonymous solutions appearing, solving problems in ways that matched Fisher Core's architecture, I got curious. Tracked the digital footprint. It led back to your home IP address. You investigated me? I investigated the brilliant mind-solving impossible problems for free on the internet. When I realized it was you, I understood 2 things. First, that you were the real genius behind Fisher Industries. Second, that Paul Fisher was the biggest idiot in Silicon Valley for not recognizing what he had. Sonia closed the folder, her mind processing this new reality. Why are you telling me all this? What do you want? I want to fund your next venture. Whatever you want to build, however you want to build it, with complete creative control and majority ownership. David pulled out another document. This is my proposal. Reeves Capital invests $50 million in seed funding. You maintain 60% ownership. I take 20%. We reserve 20% for future employees and investors. You are CEO with full authority over technical and strategic decisions. My role is to provide resources, connections, and support, not to interfere. Sonia read through the proposal, her trained eye catching every detail. It was remarkably favorable, almost too good to be true. Why are you giving me this much control? Because I learned something from watching brilliant founders. The ones who succeed are the ones with complete conviction and control over their vision. The ones who fail are the ones who get their genius diluted by investors who think they know better. David met her eyes directly. I do not know better than you about technology, Sonia. I know better about business, about scaling, about markets. If we are going to build something revolutionary, you need to own the vision. My job is to make that vision possible. What if I want to build something that directly competes with Fisher Industries? Then we crush Fisher Industries. David said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. Paul Fisher built his reputation by exploiting your genius. It would be poetic justice for your new company to destroy what he stole from you. Sonia felt a smile tugging at her lips. I like how you think. I should warn you about something. David's expression turned serious. The moment we announce this partnership, you will become a target. Paul will attack your reputation. The tech press will question whether you are really the genius or if Paul deserves more credit than you claim. There will be hit pieces, conspiracy theories, attempts to diminish your achievements. It will be ugly. I spent 20 years being invisible while Paul took credit for my work. I think I can handle some bad press. It is not just press. There are people who have invested everything in the narrative that Paul Fisher is a visionary. Admitting you were the genius all along means admitting they were fooled. People hate admitting they were fooled. David leaned back. They will come after you hard, question your technical skills, suggest you are vindictive, paint this as a bitter divorce rather than a correction of the record. Then we do not correct the record with words. Sonia tapped the proposal. We correct it with work. We build something so innovative, so obviously brilliant, that nobody can question who the real genius is. What did you have in mind? Sonia pulled out her laptop and opened a presentation she had been developing in secret for months. Fisher Industries built its empire on data processing and compression. Revolutionary at the time, but outdated now. The future is not about processing existing data more efficiently. It is about predictive systems that anticipate needs before users articulate them. Artificial intelligence that does not just respond, but creates. She walked David through her vision for Vertex Solutions, a platform that would make Fisher Industries look like technology from a previous century, machine learning systems that adapted in real time, predictive algorithms that could revolutionize everything from healthcare to climate modeling. architecture that was not just faster, but fundamentally smarter. David watched her present with intensity that felt different from the way men usually looked at her work. He was not looking for flaws or waiting to interrupt. He was genuinely engaged, asking questions that pushed her thinking deeper, suggesting applications she had not considered. "This is extraordinary," he said when she finished. "This does not just compete with Fisher Industries. This makes Fisher Industries irrelevant." That is the point. How long to build a working prototype? With the right team? 6 months for a basic demo. 18 months for a market-ready product. "What kind of team do you need?" Sonia smiled. "Funny you should ask. I have been making some calls. Turns out when you are the real genius behind Fisher Industries, the best engineers want to work with you. I already have commitments from 12 people, all currently employed by Paul, all ready to jump ship the moment I give the word." Paul is going to lose his mind. Paul already lost his mind, and his company, and his reputation. At this point, losing his development team is just adding insult to injury. David laughed, genuine and warm. "I like you, Sonia Cooper. I like your vision, your confidence, and your complete lack of mercy for people who deserve none. Does that mean we have a deal?" "On one condition." David extended his hand. "Whatever we build, you get full credit. Your name on every patent, every press release, every achievement. No more hiding behind anyone. No more letting someone else take the spotlight. You are the genius. The world needs to know it." Sonia shook his hand, feeling the weight of possibility in that grip. Deal. They spent the next 3 hours working through details: corporate structure, hiring plans, office space, timelines. David made calls to his network, opening doors that would have taken Sonia months to open herself. By the time they finished, Vertex Solutions was no longer just an idea. It was a company with funding, with momentum, with a future that made Fisher Industries look like ancient history. As Sonia prepared to leave, David stopped her at the door. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Depends on what it is." "Why did you stay with Paul so long? You could have left years ago, built your own company, claimed your genius. Why wait?" Sonia considered the question carefully. "Because I loved him, or I loved who I thought he was, and maybe part of me believed his lie, that I needed him to succeed, that the world would not take me seriously without his face in front, but mostly because I was scared of being alone, scared of failing, scared that maybe he was right and I was not as brilliant as I thought I was. And now I know the truth. I was always brilliant. Paul was just convenient." Sonia met David's eyes. "I do not need him. I do not need anyone. But I am choosing to partner with you because I think together we can build something neither of us could build alone. That is different from needing you." "I'm glad you see the difference." David smiled. "Because I think you are about to change the world, Sonia Cooper, and I'm grateful I get to watch it happen." Sonia left Reeves Capital feeling something she had not felt in years. Not just hope, but certainty. She knew exactly what came next. She knew exactly how to build it, and for the first time in her adult life, her name would be on everything she created. No more ghost in the machine. Just Sonia Cooper, the genius who finally stepped into her own light. Chapter 6. The Empire Rises. 6 months transformed Sonia's life in ways she had spent 20 years imagining. Vertex Solutions launched with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for established tech giants, not startups. The downtown Los Angeles office occupied 3 floors of a building with views that rivaled David's, all open architecture and collaborative spaces that felt nothing like Fisher Industries' corporate sterility. The walls displayed code snippets from famous algorithms, quotes from pioneering computer scientists, and a huge banner that simply read, "Innovation without exploitation." The team Sonia assembled represented the best minds in technology, many of them people who had worked under Paul but reported to her quietly, always knowing where the real genius lived. Each person who joined Vertex Solutions had a similar story. They had watched Paul take credit for Sonia's work, stayed silent because they needed the job, and jumped at the chance to finally work with her directly. Marcus Huang, formerly Fisher Industries' lead architect, had been the first to commit. "I have been waiting for you to leave that bastard for 3 years," he told Sonia over coffee, his relief obvious. "Watching you stay in his shadow while he took credit for your brilliance made me sick. Every innovation, every breakthrough, we all knew it came from you. We just could not say anything." The others had similar confessions. They had all seen the truth, all felt complicit in the theft by their silence, all wanted redemption by building something honest with someone who deserved their loyalty. Paul tried to fight the exodus with legal threats, non-compete clauses, accusations of corporate espionage. His lawyers sent letters that Melissa dismissed with surgical precision. "Your engineers are not taking Fisher Industries' intellectual property," she wrote back. "They are following the person who created that intellectual property in the first place. You should have thought about retention before you publicly humiliated the only person who made your company successful." Fisher Industries continued its death spiral. The board brought in an interim CEO who tried damage control, but without Sonia's code and without her team, the company was a ship with no engine and no crew. Clients fled to competitors. Stock price stabilized at about 10% of its peak value. The company that Paul built on Sonia's genius was now worth less than a startup. Meanwhile, Vertex Solutions attracted attention that felt surreal. Tech journalists who had spent years celebrating Paul Fisher now wrote articles with headlines like "The Real Genius Emerges" and "How Sonia Cooper Revolutionized Technology While Her Husband Took Credit." Venture capitalists who had ignored her for 2 decades now competed for meetings. Industry conferences invited her as keynote speaker, wanting her story of betrayal and triumph. Sonia accepted some invitations, declined others. She was selective about her visibility, strategic about her message. Every interview, every article, every public appearance reinforced the same narrative. She was the architect of Fisher Industries technology, Paul was the thief who stole credit, and Vertex Solutions would demonstrate what she could build when her genius was not chained to someone else's ego. The work itself consumed her in the best possible way. Building Vertex Solutions' platform felt like breathing after years of suffocation. No more compromises, no more simplifying her vision for Paul's limited understanding, no more watching her elegant code get bastardized by lesser developers who implemented her designs poorly. Just pure creation, supported by a team that understood her goals and a partner who trusted her instincts. David proved himself different from every man Sonia had worked with before. He attended technical meetings, but never tried to override her decisions. He asked questions to understand, not to challenge. When he disagreed, he explained his business concerns without dismissing her expertise. Most importantly, he gave her credit. Every meeting with investors, every presentation to potential clients, every interview with press, David made absolutely clear that Sonia Cooper was the genius behind Vertex Solutions. His role was support, not leadership. The chemistry between them shifted from professional respect to something deeper. Late nights working became dinners that extended past midnight. Strategy sessions transformed into conversations about everything: books, music, philosophy, dreams. Sonia found herself laughing again, something she had not realized she stopped doing during her marriage to Paul. David made her feel seen in a way Paul never had, like her intelligence was attractive rather than threatening, like her success elevated him rather than diminished him. "You do not feel competitive with me," Sonia observed one evening as they reviewed prototype demonstrations. "Paul always seemed like he was competing with me, even though we were supposed to be partners." Because Paul's ego required him to be the smartest person in the room. When you demonstrated you were smarter, it threatened his identity. David pulled up another screen of code. "My ego comes from building successful companies. You being brilliant makes my company more successful. Why would I compete with the person making me look good by association? Is that all I am? Someone making you look good?" David stopped working, turning to face her fully. No, you are someone making me want to be better, smarter, more ethical, more honest. He paused. You are also someone I am falling in love with, but I was trying to be professional about that. The confession hung between them. Sonia had felt it too, the way their partnership was becoming something more, but she had been cautious, scared maybe of trusting another man with her heart after Paul had crushed it so thoroughly. I am not ready, she said softly. Not yet. I need to finish what I started. Prove to myself that I can build this empire on my own terms without defining myself through a man. I understand. David's acceptance felt genuine, no pressure or manipulation. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. 3 months later, Vertex Solutions announced its first product launch. The event was deliberately scheduled at the same venue where Paul had humiliated Sonia, a choice that tech journalists called either petty or poetic, depending on their perspective. Sonia called it symbolic. She was reclaiming the space where Paul tried to erase her, transforming it into the place where the world would finally see her genius unfiltered. The demonstration was spectacular. Vertex Solutions' predictive analytics platform did things that made seasoned developers gasp. Machine learning models that adapted in real time. Algorithms that anticipated user needs before users articulated them. Architecture that processed data with efficiency that made Fisher Industries' technology look primitive. The audience of investors, journalists, and industry leaders gave Sonia a standing ovation that lasted 7 minutes. When she took the stage, Sonia did not mention Paul, did not reference Fisher Industries, did not waste a single word on the man who tried to steal her legacy. Instead, she talked about the future of technology, about ethical innovation, about creating tools that empowered humanity rather than exploited it. She talked about her team, giving credit to every person who contributed. She talked about David, calling him a partner who understood that supporting genius was better than stealing it. The press coverage was overwhelming. Sonia Cooper launches revolutionary platform dominated headlines. Tech analysts called Vertex Solutions the most exciting startup in a decade. Investors who had rejected her pitches when she was Mrs. Fisher now begged for a piece of Vertex Solutions. The company's valuation hit $500 million before they even shipped their first product. Paul, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale. Articles about him carried titles like The Greatest Theft in Tech History and How Paul Fisher Built an Empire on His Wife's Genius. He tried giving interviews defending himself, but each attempt backfired spectacularly. He could not explain the technical details of his supposed innovations, could not provide evidence of his contributions, could not answer why Sonia's name appeared on all the original documentation if his claims were true. Judy Carter had disappeared entirely, her social media deleted, her consulting firm dissolved. Rumor was she had moved to Europe, trying to escape the scandal of being the mistress who helped destroy a marriage and a company. Fisher Industries limped along under new leadership, trying to rebrand, trying to survive. But in an industry that valued innovation above all else, being exposed as a company built on stolen genius was a death sentence. Major clients switched to Vertex Solutions. Top talent refused interviews. The board discussed bankruptcy options. Paul called Sonia once, 6 months after she left him. She almost did not answer, but curiosity won. "Congratulations on your success," he said, his voice hollow. "You won. Are you happy now?" This was never about winning or losing, Paul. It was about truth, about finally getting credit for my own work. You destroyed me. I destroyed the lie you built. If you had been honest from the beginning, if you had acknowledged me as your partner instead of your assistant, if you had shared credit instead of hoarding it, we could have built something amazing together. I loved you. You loved what I could do for you. There is a difference. Sonia kept her voice even, devoid of emotion. I loved you enough to make you great. You loved yourself enough to steal my greatness and call it your own. I am sorry. I know, but sorry does not give me back 20 years. Sorry does not erase the humiliation of watching you praise your mistress for saving a company I built. Sorry does not fix the fact that you looked at my genius and saw only a tool for your ambition. What do I do now? Sonia almost laughed at the question. You figure out who Paul Fisher is without Sonia Cooper's genius propping you up. You learn to live as the person you actually are instead of the person you pretended to be. You become invisible the way you made me invisible, and maybe, eventually, you understand what you destroyed. She hung up, blocked his number, deleted every trace of their life together from her phone, her email, her digital existence. Paul Fisher became nothing more than a footnote in her origin story, barely worth mentioning except as an example of what not to do. That night, after the successful product launch, after the celebration with her team, after the interviews and the photographs and the congratulations, Sonia stood on the balcony of Vertex Solutions' office, looking at Los Angeles stretched out below her. The city glittered like a circuit board, full of connections and possibilities. David found her there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. You did it. Built an empire on your own terms. We did it. Sonia accepted the glass. I could not have moved this fast without your support. But you could have done it eventually. You did not need me. You chose to work with me. That is different. Sonia turned to face him, really seeing him. Not as a business partner or an investor, but as a man who had proven himself different from Paul in every way that mattered. David celebrated her intelligence instead of stealing it, elevated her achievements instead of claiming them, supported her vision instead of co-opting it. I am ready, she said softly. For what? For whatever this is between us. Sonia gestured between them. I spent 6 months building an empire to prove I do not need a man to succeed. Mission accomplished. Now I get to choose what I want. And I choose you. David set down his champagne glass and took her hand. I am terrified of screwing this up. Good. Fear keeps you honest. Sonia smiled. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if I ever become invisible again, if I ever start sacrificing my genius for someone else's comfort, you will call me on it. Promise me you will never let me forget who I am and what I am capable of. I promise, but Sonia... David pulled her closer. I do not think you are capable of being invisible anymore. You shine too bright. He kissed her, and it felt nothing like kissing Paul had felt. No performance, no power dynamic, no sense that she needed to diminish herself to make him feel bigger. Just 2 people who saw each other clearly, who respected each other completely, who wanted to build something beautiful together. Below them, Los Angeles sparkled. Above them, stars emerged through the city's light pollution. And between them, the future unfolded like code waiting to be written, full of infinite possibility and elegant solutions to problems not yet articulated. Sonia Cooper had finally stepped fully into her own light, and the world would never see her as invisible again. Chapter 7: The Phoenix. The next 18 months became a masterclass in how to build a technology empire with integrity. Vertex Solutions grew from a promising startup to an industry leader with revenues that made venture capitalists recalculate their entire understanding of rapid scaling. The platform Sonia designed did not just compete with existing solutions, it redefined what people thought was possible. Healthcare systems used Vertex's predictive models to identify patient risks before symptoms manifested. Financial institutions deployed the algorithms to detect fraud patterns human analysts missed. Climate researchers leveraged the processing power to model environmental changes with unprecedented accuracy. Every success carried Sonia's name in bold letters. Every patent filed listed her as primary inventor. Every press release quoted her explaining the innovation. The tech world that had ignored her for 2 decades now celebrated her as one of the most important minds in the industry. Forbes put her on their cover with the headline, "The Genius Who Refused to Stay Hidden." Wired ran a feature titled, "How Sonia Cooper is Rewriting the Rules of Artificial Intelligence." TechCrunch declared her startup of the year, noting that Vertex Solutions achieved more in 18 months than most companies managed in a decade. The recognition felt surreal at first. Sonia kept expecting someone to question her credentials, to suggest she was exaggerating her contributions, to imply that maybe Paul deserved more credit than she claimed, but the work spoke louder than any skepticism. When Sonia presented at conferences, her technical depth silenced doubters. When she published papers, the elegance of her solutions made her genius undeniable. When competitors tried to replicate Vertex's success, they discovered that copying the concept without understanding the underlying architecture resulted in inferior products. Paul Fisher watched all of this from the ruins of his former empire. Fisher Industries declared bankruptcy after 18 months of hemorrhaging money and credibility. The company that once dominated the market was carved up and sold for parts, its technology outdated, its reputation destroyed. Paul himself had become unemployable in the tech industry. No company wanted the liability of hiring someone exposed as a fraud. He survived on dwindling savings, living in an apartment that would have horrified his former self, working odd consulting jobs for startups that did not know his history. He became obsessed with Sonia's success in a way that bordered on pathological. He watched every interview, read every article, tracked every announcement from Vertex Solutions. His social media feeds filled with news about the woman who used to be his wife, the genius he had exploited, the empire builder who made his accomplishments look like amateur hour. The breaking point came when Sonia appeared on the cover of Time magazine. Not a tech publication, not a business journal, but Time. The cover image showed her in the Vertex Solutions office, surrounded by screens displaying complex code, her expression confident and serene. The headline read, "The Architect, How Sonia Cooper Rebuilt Technology and Herself." Paul stared at that magazine cover for hours. He had dreamed of being on Time's cover his entire career, had imagined what it would feel like to be recognized as one of the most important people in technology. That recognition had gone to Sonia instead. The woman he had kept invisible for 20 years was now impossible to ignore. He tried one last desperate move to reclaim relevance. He contacted a journalist known for contrarian takes and explosive stories, offering to tell his side of the Sonia Cooper narrative. The journalist, sensing a provocative angle, agreed to meet. "Everyone thinks Sonia was this hidden genius that I exploited," Paul told him over coffee, practicing the victim role he had convinced himself was true. "But the reality is more complicated. She contributed to the early code, sure, but I was the one with the vision. I was the one who understood the market. I was the one who built Fisher Industries into a powerhouse. She is using our divorce as an opportunity to rewrite history and steal credit for my work." The journalist nodded, taking notes. "Can you provide evidence of your technical contributions? Original code you wrote? Patents you filed independently? Documentation showing your role in the innovations?" Paul fumbled. "The development was collaborative. We did not always document who did what. But Sonia has extensive documentation, original notebooks, copyright filings, patents in her name. What do you have?" "I have 20 years of running a successful company. A company that collapsed the moment Sonia left. A company that, according to multiple former employees I interviewed, was entirely dependent on her technical expertise while you handled business operations." The journalist leaned forward. "Mr. Fisher, I have done my research. Every engineer I spoke with confirmed Sonia was the real genius. Every technical document lists her as the primary innovator. Every competitor I consulted said Fisher Core's architecture had a distinctive style that matches Sonia's later work at Vertex Solutions perfectly. They are all lying to protect her, or you are lying to protect your ego." The journalist closed his notebook. "I came here hoping to find a nuanced story, maybe reveal some complexity in a narrative that seemed too one-sided. But talking to you, I understand why everyone believes Sonia's version, because it is obviously true." The article that ran was devastating. "My interview with Paul Fisher, a case study in delusional ego, destroyed any remaining credibility Paul had." The journalist detailed Paul's inability to provide evidence, his contradictory statements about his technical knowledge. his obvious fabrications about his role in Fisher Industries' innovations. The piece concluded, Paul Fisher is not a misunderstood genius. He is a cautionary tale about what happens when mediocrity disguises itself as brilliance by stealing from the truly talented. After the article published, Paul's phone exploded with mockery and condemnation. The few people who still defended him went silent. His name became synonymous with fraud, with theft, with the kind of exploitation that the tech industry claimed to oppose. Meanwhile, Sonia moved forward without looking back. Vertex Solutions announced a major expansion: international offices in London, Tokyo, and Berlin, partnerships with Fortune 100 companies, a research division focused on ethical AI development. The company went public in an IPO that valued it at $8 billion, making Sonia one of the wealthiest self-made women in technology. Her relationship with David deepened into something that felt nothing like her marriage to Paul. They worked together without David ever trying to take credit or diminish her contributions. They appeared at events as partners, with David explicitly introducing himself as Sonia's co-founder, rather than letting people assume he was the primary leader. They built a life together based on mutual respect, where her intelligence was celebrated rather than exploited. One evening, after a particularly successful board meeting, David proposed. Not with a grand gesture or a public spectacle, but privately in their home, with words that acknowledged everything Sonia had overcome. I do not want to be your husband in the traditional sense. I do not want to be the man you stand behind, or the person who defines you. David held a ring that Sonia immediately recognized was custom-designed, elegant and unique, nothing like the generic diamond Paul had chosen. I want to be your partner, your equal, the person who builds alongside you, not in front of you or behind you. Will you marry me, Sonia Cooper, and keep your name because it is the name that changed technology? Sonia looked at this man who had proven himself different from Paul in every way that mattered, who had invested in her genius without trying to own it, who had supported her empire without demanding credit, who loved her intelligence instead of fearing it. Yes, on one condition. Name it. We sign a prenuptial agreement that clearly states all intellectual property I create remains solely mine. I will never again build something that someone else can claim. Sonia's voice was firm. I love you, David, but I will never give another man the power to erase me. I would not want that power. David smiled. Your genius is yours. I am just grateful I get to witness it. Their engagement announcement dominated tech news. The press celebrated it as a love story about finding partnership after exploitation, about building something beautiful after surviving something painful. Some articles drew explicit contrast between Paul Fisher, who stole from his wife, and David Reeves, who elevated his partner. Paul saw the announcement on his phone while working a temporary contract troubleshooting software for a small firm that could not afford better help. He looked at the photo of Sonia and David together, both of them smiling with genuine joy, surrounded by the Vertex Solutions team celebrating. He looked at Sonia's face, radiant and confident, so different from the exhausted woman who used to come home after doing his work without credit. For the first time, Paul truly understood what he had destroyed. Not just a company or a fortune or a reputation. He had destroyed the love of a woman who could have made him genuinely great if he had been smart enough to let her shine. He had taken her genius and called it his own, taken her loyalty and betrayed it, taken her visibility and erased it. And now she was everything he pretended to be, while he was nothing but a cautionary tale. He tried to write her a letter, tried to explain that he finally understood, that he was sorry, that he wished he could go back and do everything differently, but the words felt hollow, performative, like everything else about his relationship with her had been. So he deleted the draft and accepted what he deserved. Sonia Cooper did not need his apology. She did not need his understanding or his regret or his acknowledgement. She had built an empire that made his theft irrelevant, found love that made his betrayal forgettable, claimed recognition that made his erasure impossible. She had transformed herself from invisible to undeniable. And Paul Fisher had become exactly what he always secretly was, A footnote in someone else's success story, barely worth remembering except as an example of what genius looks like when it finally breaks free from the chains of mediocrity. Chapter 8. The Pathetic Return. The morning Paul Fisher showed up at Vertex Solutions headquarters, security called Sonia before letting him past the lobby. "Ms. Cooper, there is someone here claiming to be your ex-husband. He says he needs to speak with you urgently. Should we send him away?" Sonia looked up from the meeting she was leading with her senior engineering team. 12 brilliant minds gathered around a conference table discussing the next generation of their platform. She could have said yes, could have had Paul removed without ever seeing him. But curiosity won. She wanted to see what desperation looked like on the man who once thought himself invincible. "Give me 15 minutes to finish this meeting, then escort him to conference room B, the small one with no windows." Sonia kept her voice neutral. "And station security outside the door." When the meeting concluded and Sonia walked toward the conference room, David appeared beside her. "You do not have to do this. Let security handle him. I want to hear what he has to say. It might be entertaining." Sonia touched his arm briefly. "I am fine. He cannot hurt me anymore." Conference room B was deliberately chosen to send a message. While the rest of Vertex Solutions' office featured floor-to-ceiling windows and expansive views, this room was small and claustrophobic, used for difficult conversations with underperforming vendors. Paul sat at the cheap table, looking diminished in clothes that used to be expensive, but now showed wear at the cuffs and collar. The confident posture was gone, replaced by slumped shoulders and nervous hands. When Sonia walked in, his eyes lit up with desperate hope. "Sonia, thank you for seeing me. I was not sure you would. You have 10 minutes. She remained standing, maintaining every advantage of position and power. "Say whatever you came to say." "I wanted to apologize for everything, for taking credit for your work, for humiliating you with Judy, for not seeing your genius until it was too late." Paul's voice cracked with emotion that might have been genuine. "You were right about everything. I was a fraud. I built my entire career on your brilliance while treating you like you were invisible. Is that what you came here to tell me? That I was right?" Sonia's expression did not change. "I already knew that, Paul. I have always known it." "I know. But I wanted you to hear me say it. I wanted you to know that I finally understand what I destroyed." Paul stood up, trying to close the distance between them. Sonia stayed by the door. "I have been watching your success. Vertex Solutions is extraordinary. Everything you built proves what I always tried to hide. You were always the genius. I was just the guy who knew how to pitch. So you acknowledge you stole my work, erased my contributions, and built your reputation on fraud. That is a good start." Sonia checked her watch. "You have 8 minutes left. Get to the point. I want to work for you." The statement hung in the air like a bad smell. Sonia actually laughed, a sharp sound with no humor. "Excuse me?" "Not as an executive or anything. I know I do not deserve that. But maybe as a consultant? A business development advisor?" Paul's desperation intensified. "I still have connections in the industry. I could open doors for Vertex Solutions, help you expand faster. I know I destroyed everything between us, but maybe I could still contribute something useful. Maybe I could help you the way you once helped me. Help me the way I helped you." Sonia repeated the words slowly. "You mean be invisible while you take credit? Sacrifice my dignity while you build your reputation? Watch you steal my work and call it yours? No, that is not what I meant. I would give you full credit for everything, your name on all the work. I would just be support staff, whatever you needed." Paul moved closer, and Sonia held up a hand that stopped him cold. "Please, Sonia, I am unemployable. Nobody in tech will hire me. I have been living off savings that are almost gone. I am desperate. And you think your desperation is my problem? I think I owe you. I think maybe if I could help build your empire the way you built mine, I could earn some small measure of redemption." Sonia studied him with clinical detachment, like examining a particularly unpleasant insect. This man had shared her bed for 20 years, had promised to love and cherish her, had taken her genius and called it his own while she sacrificed everything to make him look brilliant. Now he stood before her broken and begging, wanting her to save him the way she once did when he was nothing but ambition without talent. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you, Paul. I see a man who spent 2 decades exploiting his wife's brilliance, a man who took credit for innovations he could not begin to understand, a man who cheated on his wife with a con artist and gave away shares of a company he never actually owned, a man who stood on a stage and praised his mistress while his wife died inside. Sonia's voice stayed calm, which somehow made the words cut deeper. I see a cautionary tale about what happens when mediocrity disguises itself as genius. I see exactly the kind of person I never want anywhere near my company. Sonia, please. You think you have connections that could help Vertex Solutions. Let me tell you something about connections in this industry. They matter when you are trying to break in, when you need credibility and access and someone to vouch for you. But when you are me, when you have built a company valued at $8 billion, when you have revolutionized artificial intelligence and machine learning, when you have proven your genius so thoroughly that nobody can question it. Sonia stepped closer, and Paul instinctively backed away. I do not need connections, Paul. I am the connection. Companies compete for meetings with me. Investors beg for access to my next project. My name on a product is worth more than any door you could possibly open. Then what about redemption? Do I not deserve a chance to make things right? Redemption is not something I owe you. Redemption is something you earn through genuine change, not by begging the person you wronged to give you another opportunity to be useful to them. Sonia walked to the door, her hand on the handle. You want redemption? Go find it somewhere else. Learn to code instead of just pitching. Build something yourself instead of stealing from more talented people. Become the person you pretended to be instead of the fraud you actually are. Do that for 10 years without expecting credit or recognition, and maybe you will understand a fraction of what I experienced being married to you. I loved you. No, you did not. Sonia turned back to face him one final time. You loved what I could do for you. You loved looking like a genius without doing the work of being one. You loved the money and the fame and the power that my brilliance brought you. But me, Sonia Cooper, the woman, you never saw me clearly enough to love me. That is not true. The door opened, interrupting him. David stood there, his presence filling the doorframe. He did not look angry or territorial. He just looked at Paul with something like pity mixed with contempt. I think this meeting is over, David said quietly. Paul's eyes darted between Sonia and David, and something ugly crossed his face. So this is your revenge, building a company with another man, replacing me? You think this is about replacing you? David laughed softly. Paul, you were never competition, you were never a threat, you were just an obstacle that Sonia finally removed. He moved to stand beside Sonia, and the contrast between them was stark. Where Paul looked desperate and diminished, David stood confident and supportive. Where Paul demanded and took, David offered and elevated. I did not replace you. I partnered with the genius you tried to hide. There is a significant difference. Sonia worked for me for 20 years. No, Sonia corrected firmly. I worked despite you for 20 years. I built innovations that you claimed. I solved problems you could not understand. I made you look brilliant while you made me invisible. And the moment I stepped out of your shadow, your entire empire collapsed because it was never built on your talent. It was built on mine. Paul looked between them, reality finally penetrating his delusion. They stood together, these two people who had built something extraordinary because they respected each other, supported each other, elevated each other. Everything his marriage to Sonia should have been but never was, because he was too small, too insecure, too focused on his own glory to recognize the gift he had. I made a mistake, Paul whispered. You made 1,000 mistakes, Sonia corrected. And now you get to live with the consequences. Security will escort you out. Do not come back. Do not call. Do not try to contact me again. We are done, Paul. We were done the moment you pointed at Judy Carter and erased me in front of 500 people. Everything since then has just been you, slowly realizing what you destroyed. Security appeared at the door. Paul looked like he might argue, might fight, might make one more desperate plea, but something in Sonia's expression told him there was nothing left to say. He walked out escorted by security guards, looking smaller with every step. David closed the conference room door, giving them privacy. Are you okay? I am better than okay. Sonia leaned against the table, processing what just happened. I thought seeing him might hurt, might bring back old feelings, but all I felt was relief. Relief that I escaped. Relief that I am building this empire with you instead of him. Relief that I finally understand my own worth. He actually thought you would hire him. He still does not understand that he brought nothing to our partnership except his face and his ability to steal credit. He genuinely believed his connections and his business sense were valuable contributions. Sonia shook her head. He never understood that I could have done all of that myself if the industry had not been designed to favor men like him over women like me. The industry is changing. Because of women like me who refuse to stay invisible anymore. Sonia pushed off from the table, her moment of reflection over. Come on, we have a product launch to prepare for. The new healthcare diagnostics platform is going to revolutionize preventive medicine. As they walked back through Vertex Solutions offices, past the brilliant team Sonia had assembled, past the walls displaying innovations that carried her name, past the future they were building together, she felt nothing but forward momentum. Paul Fisher was a closed chapter, a painful lesson, a reminder of what happened when you loved someone who could not see you. But that was over now. She had transformed humiliation into empire, betrayal into breakthrough, invisibility into undeniability. And the man who tried to steal her genius had been reduced to begging for scraps from the table she built without him. Justice, Sonia thought, was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was just a desperate man being escorted out of a building he would never enter again, while the woman he exploited continued building miracles he could never imagine. Chapter 9. The Queen's Throne. Vertex Solutions' second product launch was scheduled for the same week Sonia and David announced their engagement. The tech press could not decide which story was bigger, the revolutionary healthcare platform that would save countless lives, or the fairy tale romance between the genius betrayed by her first husband and the investor who actually valued her brilliance. Sonia found the media obsession amusing and slightly annoying. She was not building an empire to be anyone's inspiration or cautionary tale. She was building it because she could, because she was brilliant, because the world needed what her mind could create. The platform they were launching, MedPredict, used artificial intelligence to analyze patient data and predict health issues before symptoms appeared. Early testing showed it could identify cancer markers months before traditional diagnostics, predict cardiac events with 87% accuracy, and flag autoimmune disorders that typically took years to diagnose. Hospitals and healthcare systems around the world competed for early access. The potential to save lives was staggering. 3 days before the launch, Sonia sat in her office reviewing final technical specifications when Melissa called with news that made her pause. Paul just filed a lawsuit against you. Sonia leaned back in her chair, more annoyed than concerned. On what grounds? He claims you stole intellectual property from Fisher Industries when you left. He alleges that Vertex Solutions' platform is built on code he developed, and he wants damages plus an injunction to halt your product launch. That is insane. Every line of code in Vertex Solutions is new, written by my team from scratch. Nothing came from Fisher Industries. I know that, and Paul's lawyers probably know that too, but this is not about winning. This is about disrupting your launch, creating negative press, making you look like the thief instead of him. Melissa's voice carried professional anger. He is trying to rewrite the narrative one more time. Will the lawsuit delay our launch? Not if I have anything to say about it. I am filing for an emergency hearing to dismiss. We have documentation proving every line of Vertex code was created independently. We have timestamps, version control records, developer testimonies. Paul has nothing but accusations. Melissa paused. But Sonia, this is going to get ugly. He is going to try to damage your reputation through press statements, media interviews, manufactured controversy. Are you prepared for that? I have been prepared for Paul's pettiness since the day I left him. Sonia pulled up her legal files, already strategizing. File the dismissal. Countersue for harassment and defamation. Make it expensive for him to continue lying. And Melissa, make sure every journalist covering this lawsuit understands that Paul Fisher is a proven fraud with zero credibility, zero technical expertise, and zero claim to anything I create. With pleasure. The lawsuit dominated tech news for exactly 1 day before journalists started actually investigating Paul's claims. What they found was so laughably false that the story shifted from Sonia Cooper accused of theft to Paul Fisher's desperate attempt to stay relevant. Technical experts reviewed Vertex Solutions' code architecture and confirmed it was entirely distinct from Fisher Industries' outdated systems. Former Fisher Industries employees gave interviews confirming that Sonia had never taken company files when she left. Even Paul's own former attorneys released statements distancing themselves from his current legal strategy. Paul tried giving interviews to defend his position, but each attempt backfired spectacularly. When asked to explain the technical similarities between Vertex and Fisher systems, he could not articulate any. When pressed to provide evidence of the alleged theft, he referenced vague concepts that any competent programmer would know. When questioned about his credibility given his proven history of stealing his wife's work, he grew defensive and angry in ways that made him look unhinged. The court hearing lasted 45 minutes. The judge, clearly irritated at having her time wasted, dismissed Paul's lawsuit with prejudice and ordered him to pay Sonia's legal fees. This case is frivolous, bordering on malicious, the judge stated from the bench. Mr. Fisher has provided no evidence supporting his claims, and substantial evidence exists demonstrating Ms. Cooper's work is entirely original. This appears to be an attempt to harass a successful former spouse out of spite. Case dismissed. Paul stood in the courtroom looking shattered as Sonia walked out without glancing his direction. Melissa had to physically restrain her from turning back when Paul called out, "Sonia, please, I just wanted—" "Do not respond," Melissa hissed. "Let him talk to air." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Sonia gave a brief statement prepared by her PR team. The court confirmed what everyone already knew. My work is mine. I built Vertex Solutions from my own genius, just as I built the technology Fisher Industries took credit for. Paul Fisher's desperate attempt to disrupt my company's launch has failed. MedPredict will launch on schedule, and it will save lives regardless of the lies told by a man who cannot accept that his former wife succeeded without him. The statement was replayed on every major news network. The narrative was now locked in place. Paul Fisher was a desperate, pathetic figure trying to tear down the brilliant woman who escaped his exploitation. Sonia Cooper was the genius who overcame betrayal to build an empire that mattered. MedPredict's launch 3 days later was triumphant. Healthcare systems from 30 countries signed preliminary agreements to implement the platform. Medical journals published articles praising the innovation. Doctors and researchers who had spent years struggling with early diagnosis suddenly had a tool that could transform patient outcomes. The impact was not just commercial, it was humanitarian. During her keynote presentation, Sonia spoke directly to the women in the audience. "For 20 years, I let someone else take credit for my work because I believed I needed him to succeed. I believed the world would not see my genius unless it was filtered through a man's ambition. I was wrong. The world sees genius when you refuse to hide it, when you claim your work, when you build something so undeniable that erasure becomes impossible. To every woman whose brilliance is being stolen, whose contributions are being minimized, whose genius is being hidden, stop hiding. Build your empire. Claim your work. Let the world see exactly who you are." The standing ovation lasted 9 minutes. Women in the audience cried. Journalists declared it the most powerful tech keynote in recent memory. Social media exploded with women sharing their own stories of having their work stolen, their contributions minimized, their brilliance ignored. That evening, Sonia and David hosted a private celebration for the Vertex Solutions team. Not the carefully curated corporate event with investors and press, but a genuine party for the people who made everything possible. Engineers, developers, designers, support staff, everyone who contributed to building something revolutionary. David stood up to give a toast, pulling Sonia beside him. I want to say something about my fiancée that the press always gets wrong. They talk about her comeback story, her redemption arc, her triumph over betrayal. But those narratives miss the point entirely. Sonia Cooper did not come back from anything because she never left. She was always brilliant. She was always innovative. She was always building miracles. The only thing that changed was the world finally got to see what was always there. He turned to face her directly. Paul Fisher did not make you. He never made you. He just temporarily convinced you to hide your light behind his mediocrity. But that light was always yours. The genius was always yours. The empire you built is entirely your own creation, and I am just grateful I get to be part of it. The team cheered. Sonia felt tears threatening, something she had not allowed herself in years. She was happy, genuinely happy, in a way she barely remembered experiencing during her marriage to Paul. This was what partnership should feel like, what love should feel like, what respect should feel like. Later that night, lying in bed beside David, Sonia reflected on how far she had traveled, from invisible wife to industry leader, from stolen genius to undeniable innovator, from woman defined by her husband to woman who defined herself. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Another industry award, another invitation to speak at a major conference, another request for an interview. The world that had ignored Sonia Cooper for 20 years now could not get enough of her. She declined most requests, accepting only what served her strategic goals. She was not interested in being famous. She was interested in building technology that mattered, solving problems that needed solving, pushing the boundaries of what artificial intelligence could accomplish. David reached over, taking her hand. "What are you thinking about?" "About how Paul probably thought destroying his lawsuit would break me. How he still does not understand that I stopped being breakable the moment I stepped out of his shadow." Sonia smiled. "He is probably sitting in his apartment right now, obsessing over my success, wondering how I keep winning. You keep winning because you are brilliant, and he is not. It is really that simple." "It is never that simple. But maybe it should be." Sonia turned off her phone and curled against David, letting herself be happy, letting herself be loved, letting herself enjoy the empire she built on her own terms. Outside, Los Angeles glittered. Inside, she had everything she had ever wanted: recognition for her genius, partnership that elevated rather than diminished, work that mattered, love that respected. Paul Fisher had taken 20 years of her life. But those years were not wasted. They taught her exactly what she deserved, exactly what she was capable of, exactly what happened when you stopped hiding your light to make mediocre men comfortable. She had emerged from those years transformed, not broken, but forged. And the empire she built from that transformation would stand for generations, a monument to what happened when genius finally refused to stay invisible. Chapter 10. The Empire of Love. The ballroom that once held Paul's humiliation of Sonia now hosted her greatest triumph. 5 years after walking out of her marriage with nothing but a suitcase and her dignity, Sonia Cooper stood at the podium as CEO of Vertex Solutions, a company valued at $42 billion. Over 1,000 attendees filled the space, investors, journalists, industry leaders, all there to hear what she had built. David stood beside her on stage, not in front and not behind, but as an equal partner. The contrast to that night with Paul was impossible to miss. Where Paul had pointed past her to praise his mistress, David explicitly credited Sonia's technical genius for everything they had accomplished together. Where Paul had stolen credit, David shared it honestly. Where Paul had demanded invisibility, David celebrated her brilliance. 5 years ago, I watched my husband stand on this stage and praise another woman for saving a company I built, Sonia began, her voice carrying easily through the room. I smiled through that humiliation because I did not yet understand my own worth. Today I stand here as proof that genius cannot be stolen permanently. It can only be suppressed temporarily. The audience erupted in applause. Sonia announced Vertex Solutions' expansion into quantum computing, partnerships with major universities for AI ethics research, and acquisitions that would cement their dominance. Every announcement carried her name prominently. Every innovation was credited honestly. Every success belonged to the people who actually created it. Fisher Industries no longer exists, Sonia stated matter-of-factly. It collapsed under the weight of lies and stolen credit, but we built Vertex Solutions on truth, collaboration, and respect. That is why we succeeded. That is why we will continue to succeed. Because empire built on theft eventually crumbles, but empire built on genuine innovation lasts forever. After the announcements, journalists asked the inevitable questions. One woman raised her hand. "Do you have a message for other women whose work is being stolen?" Sonia's expression turned fierce. "Stop waiting for permission to be brilliant. Stop making yourself smaller for someone else's ego. If someone is stealing your credit, erasing your contributions, keeping you invisible, leave. Build your own empire. Your genius does not need a thief standing between you and your potential." The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Women in the audience approached Sonia afterward, sharing stories of stolen code, claimed research, erased contributions. Each one found hope in watching Sonia transform betrayal into a $42 billion empire that bore her name alone. That evening, Sonia and David stood on their balcony overlooking Los Angeles. The city glittered below them, full of possibility and light. 5 years of building, of fighting for recognition, of proving her genius beyond any doubt. 5 years of partnership with a man who elevated her instead of diminishing her. "Have you heard anything about Paul?" David asked softly. "He works tech support in Arizona now, makes $40,000 per year troubleshooting basic software issues, lives in a studio apartment." Sonia felt nothing saying it. No anger, no satisfaction, just fact. He destroyed an empire to protect his ego, and now he has neither. David pulled her close. "I love you, Sonia Cooper, not for what you build, but for who you are. The woman who helps anonymous developers on forums, the genius who believes technology should serve humanity, the partner who makes me want to be better every day." "Marry me," Sonia said suddenly. "Not some elaborate wedding, just us and our team. I want to start the next chapter. On one condition." David smiled. "I take your name, David Cooper, because I want everyone to know I am proud to be your partner, your equal, the man who married a genius without trying to steal her light." They married 3 weeks later at Vertex Solutions headquarters. Simple ceremony, no press circus, just genuine celebration with the people who mattered. The tech world covered it as a love story, about finding partnership after exploitation, about building something beautiful after surviving something painful. Paul saw the wedding photos from his studio apartment, Sonia radiant in her dress, standing beside a man who looked at her with genuine respect and love. The Vertex Solutions team celebrating, industry leaders attending, her empire on full display, while he had nothing. He understood finally what he had destroyed, not just a company or a fortune, but the love of a woman who could have made him truly great if he had let her shine. He had taken her genius and called it his own, taken her loyalty and betrayed it, taken her visibility and erased it. Now she was everything while he was nothing, and he knew he deserved exactly this consequence. Meanwhile, Sonia and David worked on their honeymoon project, an AI system identifying bias in hiring algorithms, work that mattered, work that would change lives, work that represented everything Sonia believed technology should be. "Most people go to beaches for honeymoons," David observed. "Most people are not building the future of ethical artificial intelligence." Sonia pulled up another screen. Besides, solving problems together is more romantic than any beach. This is what love looks like when it is built on respect instead of exploitation. That evening, standing on their balcony watching Los Angeles breathe below them, Sonia reflected on her transformation. From invisible wife to industry titan, from stolen genius to celebrated innovator, from woman defined by her husband to woman who defined herself and her entire industry. "I used to measure my worth by Paul's success," she told David. "I believed making him look brilliant was the same as being brilliant myself. I sacrificed my visibility and called it love. And now? Now I know I was always brilliant. The only thing that changed was my willingness to accept less than I deserved." Sonia looked at the empire they had built together. "You taught me that love does not require sacrifice of self, that partnership means elevating each other, that genius is worth celebrating, not stealing. You taught yourself that. I just had the privilege of witnessing it." Sonia raised her wine glass. "To building empires that matter, to partnerships built on respect, to love that elevates instead of diminishes, to genius finally recognized, to the future we are creating together." They toasted and drank, two people who had built something extraordinary through genuine collaboration, mutual respect and love that demanded both partners shine equally bright. Below them, Los Angeles glittered like a circuit board full of connections and possibilities. Above them, stars emerged through the city's glow, and between them, an empire stood, built not on stolen credit or hidden genius, but on the unshakable foundation of Sonia Cooper's brilliance finally unleashed, respected and celebrated exactly as it always deserved to be. Paul Fisher became a cautionary tale told in business schools about what happens when mediocrity disguises itself as genius through theft. His name was remembered only as the man stupid enough to destroy the love of a woman who could have made him truly great. But Sonia Cooper became a legend, the architect who rebuilt herself and revolutionized her industry, the genius who refused to stay invisible, the woman who transformed betrayal into breakthrough and built an empire on her own magnificent terms. And every woman who heard her story understood the lesson. Your genius is yours, your brilliance is yours, your empire is yours to build. Stop hiding, stop sacrificing, stop accepting invisibility from people too small to handle your light. Shine, build, claim what is yours. Let the world see exactly who you are and what you are capable of creating. Because the only person who can make you invisible is yourself. And Sonia Cooper would never be invisible again.